Hello, this is Laren from the Fantasy Grounds Academy. Today we are going to be at episode 8. We're going to cover tables a little bit on how to implement those and put them into the Fantasy Grounds Unity platform. I am using the D&D 5e rule set, although some of the tools and some of the functionality of Fantasy Grounds will work in other rule sets, so you're not just stuck or obligated with D&D. So if you use a core rule set, like a fantasy-based one, such as Pathfinder, Pathfinder 2, Starfinder, and such, so it should work pretty well, or pretty similar. So without further ado, I'm going to start bringing in the content. So we've been working out of a official Adventures League adventure. This is Breaking Umberlee's Resolve. Last episode we covered NPCs. This episode we're going to do some tables. So there are two types of tables in Fantasy Grounds. Just wanted to identify those. So one is the inline tables, where you actually have a text based file. So I'm going to use just an image for now, or maybe I will create a story entry. So I need to find out where these tables appear in the PDF. So there's kind of a table in the beginning, which I might actually just create that picture out of that. So that might be something I have to go back and add later, or I could just make a table based off of the text here, but it doesn't really illustrate what they're trying to show here, so I actually might use the actual picture, just make a little graphic of it and put it in Fantasy Grounds. So if you go through this PDF, let's see, I know there's one coming up where you have to name the ship. So there's a part where you name the ship, and here's a table called Evren's Divination, which is part of the plot. So when she does her divination spell, you roll on a d20 essentially, and you get these 3 story results. Let's see, is there any? Oh, there's a storm mishap table. So apparently this is a voyage. You're on the ship. There could be a problem. So that again is another d20 roll potential. And then I think there's an inline table that I want to build for naming the boat, if I remember right. There's not a whole lot of tables in here, thank God, but there are enough here to give you some examples of what should be done in Fantasy Grounds if you happen to come across these. Let's see, so I got to go through the index. So this is the map. We kind of covered maps already. Okay, so there's a table here. It's a naming table for the actual ship. So I might build this in a story entry and just kind of leave it blank, and then, or I'll go to Appendix 4 and build it, because I don't want to build it again. So I might do that, is just go to the chapter and put that in there, and then I'm going to link a rollable table that I created for this so that you can see the difference. So this is a name selection thing where the ship that you're going to be on has to be named, or is suggested to be named. So it says selecting a name is the first step. Some terminus ships have a name that contain an adjective and or a descriptor and a notable person, creature, item, or virtue. Occasionally, the order is reversed, such as Umberlee's Resolve. Like a person's name, the ship's name should represent its purpose and appearance. The party doesn't have to follow this naming template. Suggested words are provided below as inspiration. So this whole segment here, I think to name a ship, I'll put this piece in here because this is not going to take that long. And this will kind of give you an idea of the copy and paste elements. So this is page 21 of 25. So earlier in this series, we went through the actual pages and the chapters, and we created those already in the story entries. And this is exactly why you do that. So I already have all the pages here. All I have to do is copy and paste the stuff in. Another session segment from now, I'll do that a couple more times, but this will kind of help illustrate that. It's not really what I intended to do today, but I do have to build the inline table. So rather than building it twice, I'm just going to build it once. So I'm going to go to page 21, and this is where the text is going to reside for this particular part of the adventure. So I want to go ahead and just copy and paste up to this point where it has all this information and then the text for the table. So I'm going to hit Control Copy or Control C, And then in Fantasy Grounds, I'm going to hit Control V as in Victor. And that, oh, I got to unlock it. That helps. Okay, so as you can see, the text is kind of jumbled up, so we can fix this. So this says estimated duration 1 hour, so we can highlight that with and then use Control B for bold. To name a ship is a header, so we can hit Control 2. That actually makes this look similar to that. And then C, main objective, A, scene C, we can highlight that with the bold, I believe. And that takes care of that. And if you want to strip the formatting out, you can hit Control J after you highlight the text. And that takes all the formatting out from here, so it fits on your page better. And then we want to do Control B here, because that, actually Control 2, because that's a section here. And then I'm going to highlight the text, hit Control J, and that strips the formatting out. I could hit Control J on the whole thing, but I'm kind of going down line item by line item here. So there's the name, and then here's the actual information about it. So I'm going to hit Control J, that strips the formatting out. And now for the name table, examples only. So I'm going to hit Control B for the actual, see, this is for the actual table name. So we have adjective and noun. So this is essentially what we have here. So if you look at this in this regard, this is kind of how the table's set up. And then here for additional suggestions, I'm going to kind of space those down, highlight that, and hit Control B or press Control B to bold this, just like down here on the bottom. And I'm going to go ahead and turn on my pointer because I know that it's hard to tell what I'm pointing at. So apologies for that. I'm going to turn on the pointer so you guys can get an idea of what I'm looking at. Okay. Alright, so down here where it says the ceremony, I'm right above there where it says additional suggestions, so that's what I've done here, is just made these bold. So what we have here is kind of a hodgepodge of two different tables. This is a fairly simple one to make. I'm going to go ahead and delete this information. I'm just going to copy and paste straight out of the text area from the PDF. I could have kept all that, but I need the different formatting anyway, so what I'm going to do here is start a cell for a table. So I believe it's Control 5. Nope. Control 6. So that essentially starts the cell. And if I hit, let's see, if I go to Control Tab, that's going to split it. And then if I hit Enter, I can make all the other lines. So I think there's like, some kind of odd number. I think it's 7 or 9. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. So I'm just hitting Control Tab. There's probably easier way to do this, but this is the way I know how to do it. Now, if you wanted to make these smaller, you could, but you have to hit Control plus or Control minus. So the minus is supposed to shrink it, and Control plus will expand the width of it. The only problem is you can't really go any smaller than it is. So this is the minimum size, and it has to do with this stretching thing. So you can make them a lot wider, but you can't make them any smaller than they are. But if you have one that's already expanded out, you can make that smaller. So now I'm just going to copy and paste these words in here. So I personally don't care for inline tables. I mean, they look good in formatting and such, but when it comes to building them in Fantasy Grounds, not so much. So I'm sure there's a better way to do this, but I'm just kind of doing it the long way here. So I'm just going down the first column on the left and copying and pasting the text information in there. See, I already got a mistake here. I left out the letter T. So when you're copying and pasting, make sure you're getting the whole thing and not part of it. So I've done that so many times. You got to be careful where you click and that sort of thing. So if you need a little bit more real estate from your PDF or something, just expand it out so you can kind of see better. There we go. Maybe that'll help me a little bit. It helped me with the pointer, so I'll make sure I got the right pointer. So all I'm doing is just copying and pasting the text. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, you don't have to stick around and watch this whole thing, but... Okay, I got one more that I had to add. That was a short one. So, Control-Tab. Okay, so that is night and forgotten. So all this is essentially a way for your players to give them ideas on what to name their ships. It's part of the ceremony or process, apparently, in the game. And in real life, too, people name their boats. Like the White Albatross, you know, those sort of things. So this is an inline table. This is going to look kind of fancy once you make a at the end we'll make a reference manual, and it'll look really nice. Right now it doesn't look as good in the story format in Fantasy Grounds, but when you get it in the format with the text and the pictures inside of the reference manual, it looks a lot better. It looks more embedded. It doesn't just look like text kind of dropped in. Alright, so that's that. Now I'm going to bold this top thing because this is the header for the table. So that's what this is part of page 21. I'll do the rest when I actually build the whole module. This is kind of the steps you're going to go through. So that builds part of this. And then what I want to do is show you a table that I made. This is a rollable table. It's the same thing, except where it's 3 tables and they're all connected. So one of the cool things you can do with tables, and the only reason I did this just to kind of show you what you can do with Fantasy Grounds, I wouldn't necessarily put it in the module, although I think it's very useful. If I was a DM and I saw that rollable table, I would like that. So I got the tables over here over on the right. Looks like these pair of dice. So if I open this up, and then I'm going to filter to Breaking Umberlee's Resolve. That's where I put these tables. And then you see I already built the tables pretty much for this particular event here. So for name table, this is essentially what starts the whole process. So this puts it out in chat, but you can change it to story elements if you want, whatever you want. But this is the output, and then there's only two selections here. So I could have just put 1 to 2 on here, or 1 to 4, and then it deleted this second line which says roll again. I just did that just so you can see that you can add more lines. So if I unlock this table, you can actually add more columns. So if you click the edit list button here, you can actually add more columns and rows by these buttons over here on the right, and then you can edit them and you can delete them or whatever. But the main thing is that they call upon these 2 other tables, the adjective table, which is this left-hand column, and the noun table, which is the right-hand column. So I went ahead and put that in there just so that you can see how to do it. And you've got to have these square brackets to call on these other 2 tables. So I made 2 tables that have just the noun names and the adjective table. So here's the noun table, the adjective table. So both of these are going to combine to create a name for the ship. And it's kind of random. So when you roll, it'll roll the first one and then it'll roll the second one. And so you'll kind of have a random name generator, so to speak. Now, if you wanted to get more elaborate, you can use the tables in the story template format. So I'm not going to cover that too much, but if you go to your story entries in your campaign and you come up here to templates, you make a new template, and essentially you can call on tons of different tables You can even have tables that call upon other groups of tables. You can get very complex, but I'm not gonna make that. This is more of an advancing that's not necessary for this particular module. So now that I have the tables built, I have them called out on this table generator. So all I have to do technically is link the main table generator. I don't have to link all the subtables. So all I'm going to do here is I'm just going to drag and drop this table right here in the text area so that when someone is going to use this, they can just roll instead of writing down the information. So there's the actual link for the table. And then I'm going to highlight this, just the type of link it is. So I'm just going to say Control B. So it kind of stands out. So it's actually saying table. So when the GM gets to this part, instead of just having this name table, I made a rollable table. So if you open this up and you actually roll on it, it probably said roll again. No, it didn't actually. So if I go over to the table here, oh yeah, it says roll again. So we'll roll again. It keeps saying roll again. I'm gonna weight this table to where it's 1 to 3. It's going to be that, and then the other one is 4. So it's very rare that it's going to roll on that. Let's try it again. There we go. So now it's called the Night Valkyrie. So you can have it output to these 2 different outputs, or if you want it to combine, you can use that template where it will actually take those 2 tables and combine it into like a sentence. So that just depends on what your needs are, but I think that this is kind of a cool thing to do, and you could share this table with your players if you wanted to, just to make it, just to make it more interesting, so they can be more immersed into the game. So that's just a suggestion. You don't have to do that, but that just kind of shows, kind of things that can be done with the tables. You can link them together. The main thing is the naming convention of the table. So we had the adjective table, and that's exactly how it's spelled up here, up on top of the header. That's what it's calling upon, is this field. The other thing is the noun table, exact same thing. So you want to have those 2 spelled correctly on the name table, the master table. And here, actually in this adjective and noun table with square brackets around it. So that way you don't have to, you don't have to change anything, and then this actually calls on the correct table. So that's important that you know that. But you can have a ×3 modifier that tells Phoenix Grounds to roll on this table 3 times. So there's a lot of different things that you can do with tables that are interesting. But I'm just showing you more for the sake of the module and not just Fantasy Grounds. So if this was just Fantasy Grounds, then I would go through all the tables and stuff. And Zacchaeus has already done that in a lot of his videos. He already has concise videos that actually talk to you about every single type of table and how they work and all that stuff. But I'm more or less doing it for the module. But this is kind of going outside the box here, just so you can see what some of the things that can be done with tables. So I'm going to go ahead and lock these back up, close them. And now that I'm done with the inline table, you kind of get an idea of the process. So we use Control 6 to start the table when you're in a text file. So if I went back to the story entries and page 21, this was where the information is linked to. And that's not finished with this page. There's still a whole nother column to worry about. But just so you know, this is what I've done with this. So let's talk about the other types of tables, which are the rollable tables, just kind of leading into that. So there are some other tables in the game that we needed to make. I've already made them, but I'm going to show you that process, kind of the simple method. So we're going to go to tables, and we have the storm mishap table, and then we have the Everen's divination table. These come up in the tables sections in the module early on. So if we go back to like page 2, I believe, and then let me zoom this back out to 75. Okay, so in here there is two tables that you're going to use for your adventure. So here's Everin's divination table. So I put just a little bit of information about the table. So this is just kind of a way that you can kind of know what the table's about. So I put the notes here for it, because sometimes you'll get a table and it doesn't tell you anything. It just says, okay, here's the table. So this is the Storm's mishap table. So this says if there are any, if there are 3 mishaps before there's a success, the ship will capsize. So I put that here. I think that's important to know when you start rolling on that table. If you get 3 in a row, there's the boat capsizes. So I put that information here. So anything that has additional information about the table itself, not necessarily story, but more to do with mechanics. So this has another 1d3 roll for exhaustion. So that's why I included it in the description. And then on the notes page, I put PDF page 8 so that if a DM is running this adventure, they're going to know which page this is on. You could also put that in here, but I don't want to have too much text all garbled up together. So this is the what happened. This is basically what this is here. And then it has 3 options essentially, and they're weighted. So 1 through 10 is the most common, 11 through 15 is a little less common, and 16 through 20 is a little less common. So they've decided that most of the time everything's fine. Sometimes a rope will break loose, and then sometimes the captain's down. So there's 3 different events that can happen, and these are role play, but they do have mechanics associated with them for basically for navigating through the problem. So it's important that you understand that and that you have this text in here properly. So what I'm going to do is you can copy and paste this, like just copy this text and then hit Control Copy, and then in one of your columns you would paste this. So we can do that, but there's another easier way to do tables if you want to. If you only have one table, probably not the best, or you don't need to do this, but there is an import function, which is import text. And what this does is it gives you the ability to copy and paste a text table without having to do each individual thing. But what you'll find out is you got to have some formatting. So right now we're in the simple table, which really is a simple table. So we're just going to take the Storm Haps thing here, and I want to make sure I get that little period in there and everything else. And then I'm going to hit Control Copy, Control V. So if you just hit import now, it's probably not going to turn out very well, because it's not it's not conducive to how tables should be formatted. They're usually separated by commas or some sort of delimited way of dividing text. So if you choose comma as a way to delimitate these in regards to a more advanced table, it's going to give you kind of an ugly result. It's not going to come out correctly. So commas are fine, but usually if it's a sentence like this, it has too many commas in it. So you want to use a different delimiter or separator from the other text, because if you use a comma in these, it's going to put another column or a row where the comma is. You don't want that. So essentially what I want to do here is you probably want to take this and put this in a bona fide text editor, and then you'll take and put this information in a text editor like I got here, and hit Control V. And then what you'll see here is that all the stuff is jumbled up. So I hit Control A, Control J, which takes out the actual formatting. And then we can go and make line by line what we want to happen here. So what's going to happen is the separators between the lines is what's going to move those apart, so they're not jumping or jumbled up on each other. So let's see, we got to get to this. So this is the next line, and then we want to go to the next line. So technically this is only 3 lines or 3 tables, but with these little line feeders, where you actually have the table break, that's important because it's gonna look at that and use that information to parse the table. So if I go back to control copy, and then I'm gonna go to the simple table in Fantasy Grounds, I'm gonna actually delete all this. So control A, delete, control V. So this is what you want it to look like. When you copy it straight from the source as one big block of text, it's not going to keep the formatting. And then this storm mishaps thing, I'm gonna actually put that up here in the table name, because I don't think it needs to be there, because this is the actual table name. So put that there, and then just delete that part of it and the extra line, because I don't want the extra space in there. Okay, so this is essentially what this is going to look like. We'll see what it looks like after I hit import. So did it do it right? No, because I had that extra. Yeah, I shouldn't have had this what happens thing. That's the label. So let me redo that. So I'll go ahead and get rid of that. So this is storm mishaps table. Which one is it? Second one? Yeah. So I want to delete that. I already have the table made, but I wanted to show you what. So this is what it's going to look like when it's done. But I wanted to show you the process. So again, I'm going to go to import text. I'm taking the text from the notepad over here and hitting control V. So I want to just get the table name in there. And then I'm going to just take the table information, not this what happens, because that's actually just a label for Fantasy Grounds, or for just the name of the result. So now I'm going to hit control V in there. And that's probably good. Yep, everything looks like it's formatted. Go ahead and hit import, and there we go. So this is kind of a very basic way of importing large tables. This is a small one. And then this, I'll put D20 what happened. And that basically is how you import tables on a very basic level. Now, there are other options I'll show you. I'm not going to go through them all because you're going to have to use a spreadsheet and all this other stuff. So what I'm going to do is just kind of go through the option though with you. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. We don't need two of them. So essentially, instead of importing like I did with the simple table, you can click with delimited. And what you're going to do here is you're going to tell Fantasy Grounds which type of separator. I recommend a pipe, because that's less likely to be in these sentences. So if you use a pipe, or like the lines that go vertical, you will essentially create a separator between these, which will create your rows and your commas. And then you're going to ask, or it's asking you, do you want the first column or header in the first row? You're going to say yes if you have numbers on the side. So that would be, so it would know the number range. And then table ranges, or headers are in the first row on the top, table ranges are in the first column. So that would be on the left. So on the top and the left, you would say yes, or check that off if your table consists of that type of formatting. Best way to do it would be to use like Excel, or you can even use this Notepad++. But I think in Excel, you can kind of separate the text out a lot quicker and then paste it into the table, because that way it's all separated out and it's got a special separator delimiter. So that's all it is you have a choice between a pipe, a comma, a colon, or a semicolon. I would choose pipe because that's the least common character in Fantasy Grounds. Commas, colons, and semicolons can be present in sentences. Pipes usually not. So that's my recommendation. If you got a big table and it's got a bunch of sentences in it, then go ahead and use a pipe. If it's just a list of items that have no formatting or text, you can use any other separator. Probably a semicolon or a colon or something to separate all the items. So that just depends on what you want to do. But that's your choices. You got a simple table for something like I just did, or if you have a huge list of tables type things, like say you got an item table that has like 100 items or something like that, this would be the best way to go about it, and you got to format it first, either in the text area or the Notepad++, or you can use Excel and use some of the tools in Excel to separate out your data. So it's just kind of up to you how you want to do it, but this is a way that you import tables without having to go through and copy and paste every single line or every single item. That takes a long time, especially if you have a large project that you're working on. You don't want to have to go through and basically create more work for yourself. Hey, thanks for following, Byron. Okay, so we got to basically we just covered two different table types. So you have an inline table, which is essentially the text. So if I go back to the story and go to page 21, this was a text inline table, and then of course we had the rollable table that I made, which is similar to this, except for you can actually roll on it. So that gives you options if you wanted to like do some kind of random rolling. I'd actually share this table with the players, and then they can roll it themselves, and that will help them figure out a name for their ship. So that's just kind of some of the things that you can do with Fantasy Grounds. So that's pretty much all I wanted to cover for today is tables, just to give you an idea of what you can do with Fantasy Grounds, and to continue with the adventure. Like, I'm done with all the tables now, so if I go to the tables area, they're all in this group, Breaking Underlee's Resolve, and these are all the tables minus that one inline text table for the adventure. Plus I made this extra 2 or 3 here just to show you that you can link tables together and such. And you can really do a lot with tables. You can generate encounters, you can create treasure parcels. In this case, they're more role-play story basic tables. There are lots of things you can do with tables. This is by no means a comprehensive not a comprehensive video about just tables. I'm just showing you tables in context of converting the modules. So anyhow, you guys have a good afternoon. Hopefully this helps a little bit. If you want a complete breakdown of how tables work, check out Zacchaeus' videos. He's also known as Philip Gregg on YouTube, and he has all the different table types broken down and such. So anyways, everybody, take care, have a good day, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.